Good afternoon. Let's start another panel. We have a very busy schedule, so I would like to apologize for the delay. This is one of the most important panels of this agenda of the consortium. We have here representing the governors, Governor Mauro Mendes from Mato Grosso. We have Ms. Silvia Rucks, the resident coordinator of the UN in Brazil. We have Ms. Susan Gardner, Director of the Division of Ecosystems from the UNEP, the United Nations Environment Program. This panel is the result of a bigger work of these leaderships. And for us as a consortium of the Amazon, it's a huge reason of pride. It is the result of all of the debates, all of the COPs that we participated throughout time.
O desenvolvimento sustentável do consórcio para defender a
defending the projects on the biome, defending the inclusion of this population. Half of this population is under the poverty line. A series of environmental services. Lots of this population is excluded from this process of environmental financing and policies of environmental financing. So somehow this paradox of having all of this wealth, all of this forest and abundant water, and a population that is in the margin of this forest, taking care of the standing forest and living in the standing forest. We have discussed this for a long time. We've had very important panels and a lot of important actions, important programs that the consortium launched. A regional program of low carbon economy, a lot of commitments that the governors have taken here, a lot of goals that are being agreed upon here, a network that is being created in partnership with the federal government and state governments, municipal governments, partners like Fumbio, EPLAN. I would like to thank all of the partners that are supporting the consortium here. This is a space where the Amazon can have its voice. This is a panel that we are very proud of because this is the transformation of all of this debate, all of those speeches in a concrete action that was a memorandum of understanding that was signed by the UN and that is now bearing fruit. I can't give spoilers. I'm going to let the true authorities give you the news. I would like to pass the floor to Ms. Silvia Rucks. She's going to present you this context. She is the resident coordinator of the UN in Brazil. And then I'm going to pass the floor to the governor, representing all the 9 states of the legal Amazon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Secretary Eduardo. It is a pleasure to work with the team of the state of Amapá. I'm so sorry that Governor Valdez couldn't come. I would like to greet Governor Mauro Mendes, the governor of the state of Mato Grosso. He is representing the consortium, the interstate consortium of the legal Amazon here. I would also like to greet the representatives of friendly countries, Besides my friends from the United Nations, I have my friend Maria Helena Azevedo. She is the General Vice Director of FAO. She arrived here specially to be with us today. This is the second program for Latin America and the Caribbean. We also have with us Susan Gardner. She is the Director of the Ecosystems Department of the UNEP. These are the leading agencies in this program. We also have here Janete Lontra. We have had a very strong partnership for a long time. She is the president of MPTF, a very strong association for the Amazon. She is also with us here. I would also like to send a very warm regard to all of the people who live in this very symbolic region of our planet, the Amazon, and especially the original peoples, the traditional peoples who understand the meaning of sustainability in its deepest dimensions. It is a huge joy being part of this panel and especially being able to share with all of you good and promising news. The United Nations systems in Brazil, of which I have the honor of being the resident coordinator, have dialogued with the National Consortium for over 2 years about what we are going to present this afternoon. I am mentioning this because, as all relevant organizations, this is the result of a long trajectory. I remember the path that we have tread, not to remember the difficulties, but to remember the whole ambitious idea and to celebrate our accomplishment. Before I got to Brazil in May last year, aware of the challenges related to the Amazon region, I had the opportunity to hear through different partners about the efforts by the governors in the region for the promotion of a sustainable development. Right after I arrived in the UN system in the country, we created an interagency theme group on the sustainable development of the legal Amazon with the purpose of supporting the region. And this group is made up of 17 specialized agencies, funds and programs of the United Nations in the country with the leadership of the UNEP and the United Nations Organization of Food and Agriculture, supporting the Amazon. In June 2021, the States Consortium launched its plan for green recovery that proposed a strategy of transition of the region to a green economy. The interagency group and the consortium dialogued intensively to implement this plan through a joint technical work. Due to this partnership, I had the opportunity to interact more closely with this collective of 9 Brazilian states. These are 9 states, especially for the colleagues of the United Nations to get to know the 9 states. This encompasses a region that is greater than the whole Western Europe. I got to know the work that is being carried out by the consortium, which has been an example of subnational cooperation in a region that is key to Brazil and to the world. After a very serious mapping of joint actions in February this year, we signed a memorandum of understanding, which is a general framework to develop a comprehensive cooperation in the Brazilian legal Amazon. The main guideline that moves us since the beginning of our dialogue in the consortium is the need to get to know better the strategic priorities of the Amazon expressed by those who live and work there. With the support of the Secretariat of the UN in New York, we structured a mechanism that can simultaneously receive proposals and projects that comply with the guidelines of the Green Recovery Plan and receive donations of external and internal resources. I'm looking at the ABDE president to fund a coordinated response and accelerate the sustainable development in the region. This mechanism has in its DNA the integration of the SDGs and the social, economic, and environmental dimensions of the 2030 Agenda, and also the cooperative mechanism that favors the actions of listening and respect, including many actors that work in favor of the Amazon region. Therefore, it is with great satisfaction that we present the program mechanism, financial mechanism to support the sustainable development of Amazon, which is a result of the partnership between the United Nations system and the Interstate Consortium. We're going to see that we have bookmarks, and in those bookmarks, you will see that you have access to more information and all the details of the mechanism through a QR code. We invite all the entities that are dedicated to fostering the development of the Amazon to know more the tool that we have developed with all the details necessary to develop this mechanism. The financial mechanism will allow the world interest on the topic of the Amazon to materialize in partnerships, not only in relation to the management of the ecosystems, but above all, the creation of inclusive economic activities that allow millions of people who live in the region to have a dignified life. This outlook to the people of the Amazon is a key guideline of our mechanism, as well as all the other efforts of the United Nations. The region of the legal Amazon in Brazil is the house of 29 million people, and it has one of the worst poverty and human development rates in the world, and the highest rates of food insecurity. It is unacceptable that these people who live in the biggest natural wealth in the world have to live with so much material poverty. And this is going to be one of the objects of change. We have to contribute to the economic change. Therefore, we are radiant in presenting this mechanism here at Shaman Sheikh in the Amazonia Hub. In a few minutes, we're going to sign the documents to streamline this initiative. The dreams are being transformed in ideas that are being converted into words. These words are transcribed into documents like the ones that we're going to sign today. But documents have no real value if they are not transformed into actions. Finally, that is why we hope to count on the participation of all of our partners, including the countries who are friends of the Amazon, so that through this mechanism, we are able to build a better future, a fairer future, a more inclusive future for the Amazon region. Thank you very much.
Olha, com essa notícia fantástica, né, que a gente está recebendo.
These amazing news that we're receiving here, a fund that is stamped by the UN, leadership that the Paris Agreement has always incentivized and that is now becoming concrete. We would now like to pass the floor to Maria Helena Senedo, the Regional Director of the United Nations Organization for Food and Agriculture, so that you can contribute to the debate. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Governor of Mato Grosso, Mauro Mendes, Silvia Rucks, the resident coordinator of the United Nations system in Brazil, Susan Gardner. Dear participants, as Silvia said, it's a pleasure for me to join Silvia and Susan as such an important day for the Amazon. I'm representing the United Nations Organization for Food and Agriculture, but I'm from Cape Verde. We are in the same space as Portuguese speakers, and that which is a success for Brazil is also a success for us. I learned how to get to know Brazil through the Jorge Amado's books. I got to know the Northeast, I got to know Brazil. I saw Cape Verde in the Northeast of Brazil. I saw the Northeast of Brazil in Cape Verde. This week, one of my favorite singers left us, Gal Costa. So I am part of what is being lived here. I'm part of your joy and I'm part of your sadness. Unfortunately, Portuguese is not one of the United Nations languages. I'm going to have to speak in English. I would speak much better if I could speak in Portuguese. I would just like to say, Governor, that for me it's an honor, it's a pleasure on behalf of the 9 states that are part of this consortium. I would say that for me it's an honor to be part in this effort. I'm part of this group and I'm part of this project.
English, not because I want, but for the reasons you can understand. But we are here to talk about, as my colleague referred, 29 million people. They are taking care of the world's largest tropical forest with extensive biodiversity and giving services to the world, to the humanity. But as it has been said, they are not valued as that. What are the ecosystem services? What are the services they provide to Brazil and they provide to humanity? And the importance of being with you is how we can achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, how we can help the region to develop, to be sustainable, and bringing equity, because we are talking about livelihoods, we are talking about equity, how the stewards of these immense forests can be paid by what they are doing to the humanity. And for this, I think this consortium and this program that my colleague explained, I'm not going to repeat, I'm not saying what she said, but to see how this is a priority for the United Nations systems and how in Brazil, under the leadership of Silvia, we are working, as we used to say, one UN. And this is important, that we don't look at us FAO alone, UNEP alone, but you look at the system as one and how the system can contribute. I was saying that you are talking about 28 million people, but we are talking about 25 million hectares of land that are degraded. And they have been degraded because they are not sustainably used and managed. And this is also another important element for us to be with you today. As my colleague said, we are part of the Brazil United Nations Thematic Group for Sustainable Development for the Brazilian Legal Amazon, co-chaired by FAO and UNEP under the framework of the United Nations. And we, as it has been said, we don't work alone. We work with the local authorities, we work with the governments, we work with the civil society, with academia, with the private sector, with the media, and we help to strengthen the institutions and the public policies in the region, because it's important that we have strong institutions to implement whatever we agree today. And today is a great day. We'll be signing the Memorandum of Understanding. My colleague referred that is the second one in the Latin America, knowing that we are making history today in signing this Memorandum of Understanding. But more important than signing the Memorandum of Understanding, how are we going to implement the Memorandum of Understanding? It's beautiful, take a picture what we signed today, but we need to report to you what we have done and how we have transformed this lung of the planet and how we have given livelihoods to the people living in this region. And what I'm saying, we will be bringing innovation. We are bringing technological solution, but we'll be using the traditional knowledge from the people. They have been taking care of our biodiversity, and they need to be included, integrated in whatever we do. And inclusion is very important as we move forward. FAO has been working with Brazil for long. You know that we take care of food and agriculture, the sustainable management of natural resources. We give data, statistics, policies, strengthen institution, capacity building, knowledge, and this is how we'll be contributing to this initiative. Just to conclude, recognizing again the leadership of my colleague, Silvia, United Nations Resident Coordinator, our colleague in Brazil, FAO representative, Rafael Zavala, and all the governors being part of this consortium. And we know we can move forward with this integrated way because we are not looking with one part, we are a cross-sectoral and integrated way, and we'll be bringing complementarity in our work moving forward. To conclude, to celebrate this day, I think is a big day for all of us, and to come here to say we have made a change. This population has been the poorest in the world. They are left aside. They are not included. They will be the ones celebrating what we signed today. And we'll say, valeu a pena. Obrigada a todos por estarem aqui conosco. Contem com a FAO.
Thank you for being with us today. Count on FAO. With these exciting words by FAO, I'm so excited to say that it's very much connected to our bioeconomy program that was launched here, and to have the support of FAO for the investments in the program is going to be something unique to us. And I would like to take this opportunity to say that the agriculture in the Amazon has to do with the environment. So I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Susan Gardner, Director of the Ecosystem Program of the UNEP program.
Colleagues, excellence, friends, resident coordinator, my sister from FAO. It's wonderful to be here, and there's been so much that has been said already. I just would like the opportunity to add UNEP's voice to some of these really important points about how important this moment is, because UNEP is so proud to be part of supporting the Interstate Consortium on the Sustainable Development of the Amazon. This is about protecting a resource that in reality protects all of us. And known as the world's lungs, the Amazon regulates climate and rain cycles while hosting some of the richest biodiversity on the planet and the natural defense against global warming due to its ability for mitigation as well as adaptation to climate change. But this function that we know is so vital for the planet is beginning to see those signs of stress. And so we're here just in time to begin the healing and to bring it back to health. If we were to fail to halt, to heal, the damage could be so severe The impacts would be on human health and livelihoods. It would decimate the rich biodiversity and leave the world exposed to even more climate disasters. But this multi-partner trust fund is the chance to foster a new green recovery for long-term sustainability of the Amazon, for its people, for the whole planet. By catalyzing access to climate and nature finance, this multi-partner trust fund will contribute to a true transformation of the Amazonian states' economies. And we appreciate the interconnectedness between the economies, between the politics, and between societal well-being. Friends, it's clear that the Amazon needs an alternative, sustainable development pathway. If it were a country, the legal Amazon would be the 6th largest in the world in terms of land area. I mean, it's just staggering to think of the size in those magnitudes. 1/3 of the world's trees are here, 20% of the fresh water. So let's remember, the fight against deforestation can't succeed without a strategy to overcome regional inequalities, as Maria Elena has pointed out. Things like lack of infrastructure or sustainably improving the Human Development Index. It's an imperative to support the development of the Amazonic economy based on a sustainable use of biodiversity with the safeguards of inclusion of ancestral territories and indigenous peoples at the heart of any activity. And the multi-partner trust fund addresses the needs identified by the 9 Amazon states in order to foster the appropriate solutions. And these are truly at the heart of UNEP's mandate. It means green economic recovery. This means tackling food security through nature-based solutions. And this means economic development based on zero deforestation. The renewal of the national impetus for protecting the Amazon makes this multi-partner trust fund truly an example of a government approach that is so fundamental to achieving action with rapid results. The trust fund demonstrates the potential of the UN to work together at the subnational level, together with people, for people. And it's an example of a one UN action to address the triple planetary crisis in a priority ecosystem, a huge opportunity to ensure coordinated delivery with impact. We cannot afford to lose the Amazon. That's what you're hearing from all of us here. The balance of the entire planet's climate and much of our life-supporting biodiversity depends on this success. I call on the international community to respond to this challenge. The opportunity presented here with the Multi-Partner Trust Fund, respond with ambition and with generosity for the sake of our present generation, for our future generation, for people, and for planet. Thank you.
Bom, agradecendo as palavras de PNUMA, né, essa liderança.
I'd like to thank the UNEP words. This is a key leadership, and we should transform this fund into concrete actions. And that's why I'd like to pass the floor to the representative of the Legal Amazon Consortium, Mauro Mendes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to greet all the authorities present here in this panel. I'd like to greet Silvia, the representative of the UN in this country, and I'd like to thank you, for your words, Silvia, with the clear understanding about the Brazilian Amazon and the Amazon in a greatest context in Latin America, with all the rainforests and tropical forests around the country, and the important contribution that these biomes are bringing for the climate, for sustainability, and for this new moment, a different moment that humanity is facing right now. I remember that 30 years ago, when I heard for the first time this global warming story when some scientists brought this possibility, and we started having the first discussions, the first controversies. I confess that in the beginning, as many other citizens around the country and the planet, I thought that it would be a conspiracy theory or some of those scientific theories that that end up not being proven in time. The time went by, many years, many decades later, we had different studies, new theories, new evidence, and today everyone knows that the world is facing a transformation in its climate. And the cause we all know, which is the excess of carbon emissions, caused mainly by the fossil fuel. We cannot forget this reference in these discussions. It's key that the great origin of this problem is not lost over the journey, because if we do so, we won't face the origin, and most certainly the damages could be unavoidable. The tropical forests have a great relevance, but if the developed countries, the great ones who are responsible by the carbon emissions, do not revisit their commitments, and I believe they are true commitments, because many important countries have took on commitments to these reductions. So we are still believing that the measures will be taken so that this will happen. In our country, in Brazil, representing right now the governors, I'm talking on behalf of other 8 governors representing the 9 states of the legal Amazon Consortium, an important region on the topic of biodiversity, on the topic of food production as well. My state especially, which I represent, is Mato Grosso, is the greatest Brazilian producer of food. And we do so preserving 62% of our territory. Any other region in the planet produces so much food with so much environmental preservation as we have in the state of Mato Grosso. I will repeat that because I've said that many times, but I will say that as many times as I may, because it's an interesting topic. In my country, we are the greatest producer, and the Brazilian state with the great preservation of 62%. The United States, another great producer of food, and California, an American state that everyone knows, is the greatest, one of the greatest producer in the US, is preserving only 19% of the territory. China is also producing a lot and importing a lot, but it's a great producer. The province of Hubei is the Chinese state that is producing most food, but is preserving only 11% of its territory. So observe the difference in behavior within these 2 key pillars which are present in the great concerns and discussions in the world, that is food security and environmental security. Mato Grosso in the Amazon, I talked about my state, but if we go to Roraima, if we go to Rondônia, if we go to the state of Amazonas, they do not produce so much food, but they produce a lot of environmental assets. So the Brazilian Amazon should have a different outlook. And the commitment with the Amazon should be ours from Brazil. from what depends on us, the governors, the local actors. We won't watch things in a passive way. Listening to things that are not reflecting the truth. French journalists had just asked me if I were not afraid if the morale of Brazil was shaken by the environmental problems we have. And I answered, when some countries have at least 50% of preservation as we do, and in reality we do even more, we will have morale. And to show our good intentions, I was talking to the Speaker of the Senate, who have given us the honor of a visit. And by dialoguing with him about this problem, which is a great problem that we face this illegal deforestation problem. Illegal activities cannot be accepted not only in the environmental field, but in any field. No serious government from a serious society can accept illegal activities. And the illegal deforestation has been faced in different states, but it's true that, and we cannot escape the truth, that it's persisting at levels that we believe are unacceptable. So I told to the Speaker of the Senate, and I'm going to repeat it here, that for old problems, you have to face them with new alternatives. Because if you act the same way, you're going to obtain the same result. There's no point in increasing fines according to the Brazilian legislation, because in Brazil, people usually neglect and they transgress again. So I proposed the Senate. We had 5 senators and the Speaker of the House, and I proposed that we could apply, giving the example to the world, changing the legislation in Brazil so that we could seize the lands of those who were performing illegal deforestation.
Mas veja bem, é crime.
Seems a little impacting, but it is a crime, like drug trafficking. In Brazil, planting marijuana or planting cocaine in a property, by the Brazilian law, you can seize the property, and the owner of that property is going to lose the property. So we're talking about a crime that is against the environment of our country and against the lives of people. It's a crime against the Brazilian economy, against the image of our country. So it deserves a sanction that is as hard as planting marijuana or planting cocaine. The Senate received this idea a little bit scared, and it's scary for those who listen to it for the first time, but we need to leave this agenda of fighting against this persistence of some very few people. 99.9% of those who work in rural activities in Brazil do not practice those crimes, but very few of those who practice those crimes jeopardize the credibility of our country and jeopardize our environmental safety and jeopardize one of the most important biomes of the planet. So we need to practice a very harsh legislation. And this is the kind of defense that I'm going to practice in my state in the next few weeks. And I want to go to the National Congress to deliver a bill of law so it could be debated, because we need to harden the legislation to preserve our Amazon forests and to give an example to the world. I would like to thank you once again for signing this cooperation agreement. And I speak on the behalf of all of the governors. We will employ our best efforts to honor all the lines that we are writing in the agreements that we are signing here. Many agreements have been signed in Paris in 2015 and that were not fulfilled by many countries, not only financing this environmental agenda, but the most important efforts were reducing the carbon emissions. So we will give the example, and we will fulfill everything that we are agreeing upon here. And thank you again for the trust and the partnership to develop this project together. Thank you very much.
Bom, pessoal, depois dessa fala,
After this important speech of commitment of Governor who spoke here, we're going to sign two instruments. An instrument signed by FAO here, and we're going to have the request. Please, Governor, come here. We will have two documents. Governor Waldez can come here and can also give a final speech. We are going to sign the document here, and then we can pass the floor to you. It's an honor to have you here. We're going to have two instruments signed. We're going to have the resources for the fund, and then we're going to have the signature of the instrument that is going to be forwarded to New York for the official launch of the fund by the UN.
senhores, então, para a gente encerrar aí, celebrar essa
Ladies and
parceria.
gentlemen, for us to wrap it up and celebrate this partnership, I would like to pass the floor to Governor Waldez for her final words. I would just like to restate what Governor Mauro said and celebrate the partnerships. Thank you very much for the trust of our partners. Let's have the consortium of the Amazonian governors as a strong partnership. And thank you to the United Nations for the look that they have over the Amazon. Thank you very much.